At first, this appears to be a passionate love story, but underneath it lies something far more unsettling, a conflict between power and personhood. Carlo is not fascinated by Adriana simply because she is beautiful or bold. He is fascinated because she is the first person who looks at him and sees just a man, not a legend, not a threat, not an empire. And in that moment, the structure of power he built around himself begins to crack, because sometimes the most dangerous thing for a powerful man is to be seen too clearly.
The prologue was a single, unclaimed stretch of asphalt in Naples' suffocating Rico district. For Adriana, it was not merely parking. It was a conquest in a city of endless war, the one small victory her entire day hinged upon. A failing engine, a body starved of sleep, and a spirit running on fumes had already worn her defenses thin. Her soul was overinvested in this prize, and the car's desperate lurch forward was less a maneuver than a prayer. And then, fate arrived in a black Maserati, a sleek predator of a car that bled power and contempt. Their vehicles faced off like gladiators, a territorial challenge drawn in steel and glass. The test had begun. He was carved from arrogance and privilege, his expensive suit a shield of immense wealth. His first act was not a word, but a dismissive flick of the wrist designed to erase her, a god swatting at a fly. In response, she tapped her turn signal, a quiet declaration of legitimacy, a refusal to be erased. He emerged from his car, the effortless script of his dominance suddenly torn, forcing an improvisation. His movements were liquid confidence, the motion of a man born to be obeyed. The imposing frame and the perfect suit were armor, a physical projection of the immense power he wielded without a thought. He strode toward her car with absolute certainty, expecting it to part for him like the sea. Her vehicle became her fortress, forcing him to make contact, a hard rap of knuckles on the glass that spoke of violence. The window descended a mere inch. "You're in my spot," he stated, the words steeped in absolute ownership. Her reply was a blade wrapped in silk, a simple, logical counter about being there first. An eyebrow arched, betraying not anger but a flicker of novel amusement. As she moved to claim her victory, his hand landed flat on her hood, a casual act of possession, a violation of her territory. His words became a softly spoken ultimatum, a classic maneuver of a controlling mind. Her response was a single guttural syllable of defiance. No. The word escaped her, an instinct that escalated everything. Her defiance was born of exhaustion and the gnawing anxiety of 1,000 failures. In that moment, he became the symbol of every system that had tried to crush her, and she was staging a rebellion. She then went on the attack, dictating terms and shattering the power dynamic. Her suggestion of a public garage was a calculated dart aimed to deflate his status and establish her control. He didn't erupt in fury. He laughed, a deep, resonant sound. This wasn't a threat to his ego, it was a tribute. She had become a fascinating new game, a challenge to his utter dominance. He played his trump card, the weight of his name, expecting her to fold. Her utter indifference was a stunning blow to his narcissism, which only inflamed his intense curiosity about this strange woman. "Carlo Ferretti," he announced, expecting the name to shatter her resolve. The blank stare he received was confirmation. She was an outsider, a complete and beautiful anomaly in his carefully curated world. He began listing his dominions, painting a map of his absolute power over the very ground she stood on. The name Ferretti finally clicked, a word tied to rumors of ruthlessness that sent a chill through her blood. The dark legends of the Ferretti family flooded her mind, a dynasty of wealth and shadow dealings. And Carlo, they whispered, was the most dangerous of them all, a brilliant mind paired with a serpent's heart. Yet even with this terrifying new knowledge, her defiant posture remained unbroken. He watched her, his mind shifting from conquest to analysis. "You are either incredibly brave or a magnificent fool." His sharp eyes inventoried her car, deducing her profession, her destination. He reframed the battle, asking if this tiny patch of asphalt was worth provoking the man who owned the world she worked in. Her retort that she'd argued the point with the Pope himself transformed his amusement into genuine fascination. The prize was no longer the parking space. The prize was her. "Your name," he demanded, as if granting a reward for her spirit. "I must know the name of a woman who fights me so well." It was a narcissist's hunger for a new, thrilling challenge. Adriana Romano. He listed the ways he could destroy her career, a casual display of his power, but Adriana saw through the threat to the gleam of delight in his eyes and called his bluff, neutralizing his intimidation. He conceded with a slow, admiring smile. The dynamic between them morphed into something more intimate, as she explained this fire was reserved for men who believed they could intimidate her. He stepped away but reasserted his dominance with a quiet, cryptic phone call. It was a calculated move to reclaim control, wrapping her future in a shroud of chilling uncertainty. Parking his Maserati illegally, he showed his utter contempt for the rules that had started their fight. "Arrangements are made," he said, the vague words promising consequences far beyond this street. "The space is yours," he conceded, but his eyes held her, promising a different kind of war. "It is your stubbornness I find compelling." The battle was over, but the campaign for her soul was just beginning. He commanded she have dinner with him. She immediately refused. He dismissed her answer entirely. "I will learn every detail about you," he promised, a threat of invasive, total surveillance. "That's called stalking," she snapped. "Due diligence," he corrected smoothly. His final manipulative genius was predicting she'd agree. Not from fear, but from a curiosity he knew he had ignited. The 5-minute war left a charge in her blood, an adrenaline surge she mistook for vitality. Before she could refuse again, he was gone, leaving her with a racing heart and trembling hands. Disoriented, she saw she was 15 minutes late and fought for composure with deep breaths. She silently declared her independence from Carlo Ferretti's words, which were engineered to steal it. Her mind was a civil war. Even as she planned her defense, she knew the manipulator was right. Her curiosity was a burning fire. The feeling he gave her was a dangerous, addictive poison. For months, her life had been a fortress of routine and order, a baseline Carlo Ferretti had just demolished. She pushed the memory down, walking into the Grand Palazzo for her client meeting. This one client meant 3 months of survival. Despite the lingering echo of the confrontation, she focused her mind, and the pitch meeting concluded with unexpected, resounding success. They were impressed, promising a verdict within the week. She felt a cautious bloom of hope. Back in her car, a text from an unknown number glowed. "You were 17 minutes late to your meeting at Romano and Associates." The message went on, twisting her patience into a good sign. This godlike knowledge made the room swim. When she called it harassment, he twisted the word to information gathering, a calm, clinical term for stalking. He dangled her private financial details before her, a benefactor's cruel gift. Her pleas to be left alone were ignored. Then he named a time for dinner, and her street, Via San Gregorio Armeno, and a band of ice tightened around her chest. She already suspected he could watch her from anywhere. Her texted no was erased by his 2 words. "Yes, you are." He sealed it by claiming her as something he wanted to keep, whispering her name, Adriana, like an intimate secret. Her hands trembled as she blocked his number, a strange mix of rage and a dangerous, trauma-born thrill. She argued herself out of calling the police. His war was on her mind, a territory outside the law. What he did wasn't illegal, just an invasion of her soul, and a dark, hidden part of her felt seen. It was an old wound, left by a man 18 months ago who had treated her like she was invisible. Carlo Ferretti, for all his arrogance and violation, did not see her as disposable. The thought chased her through the chaos of Naples traffic. Her small fourth-floor studio, her hard-won fortress, suddenly felt like glass. The apartment had been her symbol of freedom. That night, she tried to bury thoughts of him under work, but it was useless. Every ping from her phone was a shock to her system, leaving her coiled and vigilant. Around midnight, a sharp knock froze her in place. A voice announced a delivery for Signorina Romano. The courier held a huge bouquet of wildflowers, their rustic simplicity a calculated move to disarm her. She insisted she hadn't ordered them, but the courier said they were prepaid. The card inside was a compliment wrapped in a command. "Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Do not make me come get you." Her survival instinct screamed, but she stayed put. She put the threatening flowers in water, trying to map out his game. The next day, she dove into work to outrun the 8 p.m. deadline, planning to defy him when he came to her door. The plan to resist simply dissolved. At 7:30, she was in the shower. By 7:45, she was guessing what he would wear. By 7:50, she was ready, a portrait of compliance in dark jeans and a silk blouse. This wasn't surrender, she told herself, it was strategy. At exactly 8 p.m., he knocked. She opened the door to Carlo Ferretti, and his presence hit her with even greater force than the first time. He wore casual clothes, a carefully constructed disarray designed to soften the mogul into something less threatening, more desirable. He took in the sight of her. "You are ready," he said, his gaze drinking in her obedience. Her protest was a lie the moment she reached for her purse. "We have established this," he said, waving away her resistance. He liked that she still fought. He rewrote their story, calling this a meeting born from a shared, mutual obsession. She denied it, but his small smile showed he knew he already occupied her every thought. He urged her to stop fighting, certain she wanted this. She gave in silently, drawn by a morbid need to understand this man and the dangerous current he sent through her. She tried to set a boundary. One dinner. He agreed with his voice, but his eyes told a different story. His Maserati was parked illegally, watched by a subordinate Carlo dismissed with a single nod, a casual display of his power. As he held her door, she asked about the man. He called it a practical matter to keep the car from being towed. He then blamed the neighborhood's character, an excuse she wouldn't accept. She defended the historic center. He simply changed the words, calling its criminals pragmatists. Then he revealed a personal tie to the area, a calculated blow to her defenses. Her surprise was predictable. He drove the narrow streets with an inherited ease, explaining his family came from humble shipping money, not the aristocracy she might have imagined. He sketched out a modest beginning. She started to ask how he rose so far, but he cut her off. "How did I become this?" he prompted, gesturing to the car, the life, the power surrounding them. His ambition was fueled by relentless work, shrewd risks, and a comfort with moral shadows. His father was a man of caution, a trait Carlo shed like skin. He made bets his father would have condemned. Some paid fortunes, others brought him to the brink of ruin. But survival made him sharper, building an empire his father could never have envisioned. His voice held a clear note of pride, but beneath it, a defensive edge, as if still justifying himself to his father's ghost. I asked, "Is your family still here in Naples?" "My father died 5 years ago, a heart attack. My mother is on Capri, in a villa I bought for her. She won't return to the city, too many painful memories. My siblings and I run the family business, though run is a generous word. We tolerate one another to protect the profits." He stopped at Pizzeria da Michele. A valet appeared as if summoned. Carlo passed him the keys without a word and walked around to open my door. I asked, "You drive a Maserati to a pizza place?" "I drive this car everywhere. Why would I borrow a lesser one to impress you?" Amusement danced in his eyes. "Would my value rise if I drove a Fiat like yours?" "My Fiat has character. Your Fiat has rust and an engine light that has given up hope. But I agree, it has character. That's what I first noticed about you." "What else did you notice?" The question escaped me. Carlo's hand rested on the small of my back, guiding me toward the entrance. "I noticed everything," he said, his voice low. "That you wear your hair down to seem softer in business. You bite your lower lip when you concentrate, that your right hand is smudged with graphite from sketching by hand. You're left-handed, and you take your coffee with milk and 1 sugar. And when you give a real smile, not your professional one, a dimple shows on your left cheek." I stopped dead and turned to face him. "How could you know all that from yesterday?" He answered calmly. "I didn't. I had you followed today." The admission should have sparked terror and urge to flee. Instead, I heard myself ask him why. "Because I needed to know you. Because for 33 years, no one has denied me something as small as a parking space, and I had to understand why." He closed the space between us. I could smell his cologne, dark, expensive leather and cedar. He continued softly, "What kind of person chooses a parking spot over avoiding a man like me? And the more I learned," he said, "the more captivating you became." "This is pathological," I breathed, but I didn't move an inch. "Completely," he agreed. "I should have dismissed you the second you drove off, laughed you off as a story to tell." His eyes locked on mine, but I couldn't stop thinking about you, about how you looked at me like I was just some man, not Carlo Ferretti. About your defiance, your intensity, the fact you built a business from air and are bleeding to keep it going in one of Italy's toughest markets. I demanded, "How do you know I built it from nothing?" "Because I know everything," he said simply. "I know you graduated from the Academy of Fine Arts 6 years ago. I know you worked at 3 design firms you hated because they stifled you. I know you struck out on your own 2 years ago and have struggled ever since because you refused to compromise your art for easy money. I know you're 3 months behind on rent, and that you live on pasta because it's cheap and haven't bought clothes in over a year." Heat flooded my entire chest. The shame was a physical blow, scalding and complete. He knew it all. Every failure, every value I cherished, every fragile thread that held my life together. "I have to go," I managed, my voice thin and brittle. This was a grave miscalculation. As I moved, his fingers circled my wrist, a hold without pressure. "Don't," he said, and then a whisper, "Please." That one word froze me in place. Carlo Ferretti did not seem like a man who used the word please. His tone was a low murmur. "This is not meant to shame you. It is meant to show you I understand. I have walked in your very shoes. I have survived on bread and olives because that was all there was. I have heard the sound of creditors hammering at my own door. I have laid awake through endless nights, certain I was insane for believing I could build something from nothing." His voice trailed off. "And you must believe this. I see you, I truly do. Not the polished, capable front you show your clients, but the woman underneath, the one holding it all together by a thread, refusing to break." My eyes lifted to meet his. This dangerous, imposing man understood the architecture of my soul with terrifying precision. I had to ask, "Why do you care?" Because stubbornness knows its own reflection, he replied. Because I recognize in you the same hatred of failure that built me. And because, he paused, his words chosen carefully, for all the years I spent building my empire, I've been surrounded by people wanting something from me. He gave a detached summary of their exchanges: financial, positional, protective, and for the sake of promotion. He referenced her inability to register his authority during a minor clash over territory. This departure from the expected, he said, was a singular and compelling new element. She theorized she was a case study, a conclusion he instantly refuted. He cast her in an idealized light, calling her authentic, a trait he claimed his world lacked. The physical contact ended, yet he remained close. He then changed his approach, making a disarming plea for a meal, a manufactured frailty intended to trigger a sympathetic reaction. In spite of clear predatory indicators, surveillance, and breached boundaries, her emotional response was positive. Fine, I yielded. One pizza, but I am paying my way. Out of the question. Adriana, he cut in smoothly. My fortune is more than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. Your rent is 3 months overdue. This is not a debate. I am buying your dinner. Take it with some grace. I do not take charity. Perfect, he said. Neither do I. This is not charity. This is a man asking a woman who interests him to dinner. Allow me this, without making it a battle of wills and pride. He offered his hand. Please. The word appeared again. Please. It dismantled my defenses better than any order could. I took his hand. The restaurant was as chaotic as he had suggested. A line of people snaked out from the entrance. Carlo, however, walked right past them all. The hostess greeted him by name, showing us to a table in a far back corner. It was quiet, hidden, a sanctuary from the surrounding noise. I noted, you keep a table at a place that doesn't take reservations. The owner and I have an arrangement, he clarified. Our grandfathers knew one another. Sometimes old loyalties carry more weight than money. He ignored the menu, ordering for us in a quick stream of Neapolitan I could barely follow. I blinked. What did you just order? 2 margaritas, 1 marinara, a caprese salad, and fried zucchini flowers. Trust me. I don't know you enough to trust you, then trust my taste in food. I have been eating here since I was 6 years old. My father would bring us every Sunday after church. It was the one indulgence he allowed himself. Pizza for his family, it didn't matter how little money they had. His voice softened at the memory. He always ordered far too much, convinced that wasting food was a cardinal sin. My brothers and I competed to see who could eat the most slices. I was the usual winner. That is not a surprise at all. I observed, you seem like a man who is accustomed to winning. I am accustomed to refusing to lose. There is a difference. The waiter brought wine, a simple house red, and Carlo poured for us both. Tell me about your company. What made you want to be a designer? Your background check probably told you that. I have data. I want the story. Your story, not the bullet points my men put together. I took a sip of wine, debating how much to give away. My grandmother was a dressmaker. She made wedding gowns, communion dresses, custom suits for life's biggest moments. I was raised watching her spin fabric into art. She used to say that design was the art of seeing what could be instead of what was, of making something extraordinary out of the ordinary. And you wanted that. I wanted to make things that had meaning, things that made people feel. When I worked for the design firms, it was all about trends, data, and whatever would get the most clicks. There was no artistry, no soul. They wanted content built to go viral and be monetized overnight. I twisted the stem of my wine glass. So I quit, opened my own studio, thinking I could do it differently, do it right, and build a name on skill and passion. But passion does not pay the rent as fast as viral content does. No, it does not. I looked him in the eye. But I will not quit. I will figure it out. I always do. That's stubbornness again, Carlo remarked, but a smile touched his lips. And if I told you I could make all your problems vanish, one call, and you would have more clients than you knew what to do with, would you let me? No. And why is that? Because I would be in your debt, and being in debt to a man like you is a dangerous place to be. A man like me, he repeated, his voice low. You mean someone whose business operates in the shadows of the law? Someone with a reputation for being ruthless? Someone your mother would warn you to stay away from? My mother is dead, I said. And yet, he agreed. If she were here, she would tell you to run fast and far from me. A smart woman? You should take her spectral advice. He leaned back as the food arrived, a pizza whose rich scent made my stomach audibly rumble. He noted it, saying, "But you will not listen, will you? Your curiosity is too strong." Because some piece of you needs to see how this plays out if you step into my world for a little while. My denial was instant. I am not stepping into your world. I am eating pizza. It is not the same thing. He then made a move of quiet dominance, placing a slice on my plate. Eat. Then we can determine the rules of this engagement. The food was divine, a simple perfection that was the very taste of Naples. For several minutes, we ate in a comfortable silence, and I felt the knot of anxiety in my chest begin to loosen despite the strangeness of it all. Carlo abruptly changed course. Tell me one true thing, something you have never told a soul. My guard went right back up. Why? Because I need to know you, the person, not the presentation, and I will give you a truth in return. A fair trade, I debated, just saying no. But something in the atmosphere, the dim light, the wine, a startling feeling of connection, made me careless. I confessed, I am terrified. I wake up every single morning afraid that I made a terrible mistake, that I should have stayed at the firm, swallowed my pride for a steady paycheck, that I am going to fail, have nothing, and that my determination is not a virtue at all. It is just a stupid pride that will be the end of me. Carlo was silent for a moment, his dark gaze tracing the lines of my face. Your turn, I pushed. A truth, he said simply. I am immensely lonely. I have money, power, and respect. I have men who obey me and partners who court me. I have family who tolerate my existence and any woman I could want for a night. But I have no one who actually sees me, the way you did yesterday when you just saw an infuriating man trying to take your parking spot. Everyone else sees Carlo Ferretti. The myth. You just saw a guy. The vulnerability in his voice was disarming. This was not the arrogant man from the day before, nor the powerful figure who had commanded me to join him for dinner. This was a man who had every measure of success, except for the one that actually mattered. That must be so tiring, I said quietly. The constant act, always having to be Carlo Ferretti. It is the price of admission in my world. You're not allowed to be human. You're required to be an icon. He poured more wine into our glasses. But with you, the act is not necessary. My money and my influence are irrelevant to you. You've judged me as arrogant, invasive, and likely a threat. On all counts, you are correct. But it is at least an honest appraisal. I have never in my life had a dinner this strange, she declared. Good! Strange is infinitely better than dull. I've suffered enough dull dinners for 10 lifetimes. He claimed another slice of pizza. Now tell me of your grandmother, the dressmaker. Is she still with you? No, she passed away 4 years ago. Cancer. A familiar weight settled in her chest. She was the one who pushed me toward the academy, who insisted my gift was something to be nurtured. My parents thought art was foolish, that I should find a secure profession in accounting or law, but Nana believed in me. And when she died, I nearly gave it all up. I started to think my parents were right, that my dream was pointless. But then I knew that to surrender would be to betray everything she taught me. So I carried on for her. Carlo's hand then slid across the table, covering hers. The touch should have felt presumptuous. They were near strangers, yet the contact felt solid, anchoring. She would be proud of you, he murmured. To fight and refuse to break is more honorable than to win by compromising your soul. You say that like you know from experience. I have done both, compromised and refused to. I can tell you which one lets a man sleep at night. His thumb drew slow circles on the back of her hand. But I've also learned survival sometimes requires you to bend. There is a difference between betraying your core principles and being strategically pragmatic. Is that your excuse? That your questionable business dealings are just strategic pragmatism? Yes, and also that the world isn't black and white. The law often serves the powerful, not objective justice. I work in the gray spaces where the official rules are meaningless. Does that make me a criminal or a realist? That depends on the judge. And what is your own judgment of yourself? Carlo fell silent for a beat. His dark eyes gave nothing away. I judge myself by my word. I give it sparingly, but I always honor it. I protect what belongs to me. I do not break the faith others place in me. The courts may see me as a villain, but my own conscience is clear. And am I now something that belongs to you to protect for my woe? She asked, her words a clear challenge. The possibility is being weighed. Are you choosing to allow it? He leaned closer, his entire focus narrowing onto her. Because this is what I'm offering, Adriana. I want to see you again. Not for these isolated, formal dinners where we pretend at normalcy. I want to discover what this is. You and me, this charge between us, whatever its name. That is insane. We met only yesterday. I have made far heavier decisions on shorter timelines. I am an excellent judge of character, and my reading of this is clear. You are captivating, brilliant, stubborn, and true. Any of those traits is rare. All of them in one soul demand pursuit. And what would this pursuit involve? She questioned, her pulse quickening. Because I have no desire to be a rich man's passing fancy. Good. Because I have no desire for the temporary. When I commit to something, it is absolute. If we move forward, if you agree to this, to exploring whatever this is, you will not be a simple distraction. You will be a deliberate choice, an investment. An investment, she repeated flatly. That sounds like business. All of life is a transaction. The only question is whether the deal is fair, if both sides are treated with decency and truth. His grip on her hand tightened slightly. I can offer you things, not charity but access. Introductions to patrons with deep pockets and fine taste, safety, security, a life free from the constant fight to survive. And what do you demand in return? You! Your attention, your presence, your honesty. I need someone who will call me an arrogant bastard to my face. Someone who will fight with me over trivial things that ignite that fierce spirit of yours. I need the undiluted Adriana, you without filters or compromise. She should have walked away. She should have recognized the situation for what it was. A man of immense power, accustomed to victory, making an offer that sounded generous but was surely bound by invisible chains. And yet, she was captivated. When had anyone last looked at her the way Carlo was now? As if she had worth, as if she was a prize to be won, as if her defiance was a virtue, not a failing. She finally said, "I need time to think." "That's reasonable. Take it. I am not going anywhere." He released her hand and gestured for the bell. "But while you consider, let me show you something." "Show me what?" "My world. The parts of it that are not dark and violent. The parts that might appeal to a woman like you," he smiled. "Let's go. The night is young, and Naples is breathtaking this time of year." They left the trattoria, strolling through the cramped alleyways of the Centro Storico. Carlo pointed to buildings he owned, recounting bits of local lore and greeting vendors who treated him with an unmistakable mix of fear and admiration. This version of him did not match the stories of a brutal syndicate boss. This was a man woven into the very soul of his city, who knew its heartbeat and its secret corridors. Their walk ended at Castel dell'Ova, overlooking the water. The castle gates were locked, but a single call from Carlo had them open to the ramparts. The panorama was staggering. Naples lay scattered before them, its lights a carpet of fallen stars. Vesuvius was a hulking shadow against the night. "I come here when I need to clear my head," Carlo said, his hand on the cold stone. "When business gets complicated or family feuds become too much. From this high up, everything falls into perspective. Problems that seem like mountains on the street are cut down to their true size." "It's breathtaking." "I agree it is," she admitted. "But that's not why I brought you." He turned to face her, his eyes serious. "I brought you here so you could see me without the armor. Not Carlo Ferretti, the businessman, just Carlo, a man tired of solitude, who saw something in you that was worth the risk of being told no. Who is standing here, hoping you will see him again." The vulnerability in his voice disarmed her utterly. This was not the arrogant man who had commanded her to dinner. This was someone making a plea, offering hope, and laying himself bare. She answered in a near whisper, "One more date. Let me get to know the man, not the reputation. If it feels right, we see where it leads. If not, we part ways as acquaintances who shared excellent pizza." Carlo's smile was like the breaking of dawn. "One more date. That is a start I can build on." He stepped closer, and she knew he meant to kiss her. She should have pulled away, reinforced her boundaries, and kept things professional. Instead, she found herself leaning in. The kiss was nothing she expected. It was soft, almost shy, as if he worried too much pressure would make her flee. His thumb traced the line of her cheekbone, a simple touch that triggered a profound shift inside Adriana. Her defenses, built from years of disappointment, began to crack. When they broke apart, both struggling for breath, Carlo whispered that she would be his ruin. He called her an invader, one who could resurrect desires he had worked hard to bury. She met his claim with a surprising fire, breathing, "Good," wanting him to feel the chaos of human longing, not just the chill of efficiency. He gave a low, intimate laugh, saying that was precisely how she kept him off kilter. When she admitted her own confusion in this, he echoed the feeling, a tactic that wove them into a shared, deliberate bewilderment. She then suggested they try to navigate this together. He drew back slightly, his eyes studying her face with careful intensity. He then took control, announcing he would drive her home and that he had already planned their next outing, telling her to wear sensible shoes. She remarked on his foresight, and he replied that once he commits, his focus is absolute. He framed his decisiveness not as a demand, but as a vow, a manipulation of words she found reassuring instead of alarming. As they drove through the sleeping city, his touch would occasionally find hers. A comfortable silence grew between them, which she found unsettling for two people who had met less than 48 hours before. At her apartment, he walked around to open her door and escorted her to the entrance. She offered her thanks for the dinner, the castle, and for what she called his surprisingly non-lethal presence. Carlo's mouth twitched into a smile as he conceded he could be formidable when needed, but that she was exempt. "Not with you," he vowed, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek with practiced tenderness. He decreed they would meet at 10 o'clock the next morning. She asked where, but he called it a surprise, testing her with a simple question. "Do you trust me?" He smiled when she said no. His lips on her forehead were an unexpected grace note, a gentle press that unraveled something inside her as he commanded her to come anyway. She watched him vanish into the street below before climbing the 4 flights to her apartment, her mind a storm of recent moments. She had agreed to see Carlo Ferretti again, had surrendered to his touch, and was now weighing a future with a man from the shadows, a man who had watched her every move. A thrill echoed where fear should have been. Then a message buzzed from a burner number. The text was a command. "Do not block this one. I need to contact you." When she asked how many phones he owned, the reply from CF, Carlo Ferretti, was a chilling final word. Enough. His text was a probe for validation. Had she enjoyed herself? Her response confirmed that his presence had been the reason for her pleasure. He clarified that ecstasy can sour into regret, that he needed to know her feelings were true. She insisted there was no remorse, but that final judgment would wait for whatever he had planned. His final text described the plan not as a secret, but as perfect, and he signed it with a single word: Bella. Beautiful. It warmed her blood. She fell asleep with the phone in her hand, dreaming of his face. By 9:30 the next morning, she was dressed in casual clothes, perfectly obedient to his command. She knew that anything Carlo chose to do would be an event. He arrived at precisely 10 o'clock, a portrait of casual grace. In his hands, he carried 2 coffees and a bag of fresh pastries, an offering, a gesture of a man who provides. "We have a long drive," he announced, handing her breakfast. They left Naples behind, climbing into the hills as the coast unfurled below them like a dramatic map. Carlo drove with an easy confidence, narrating the history of the land as they ascended higher into the sky. He wove a story of his childhood, of family drives along this very coast, manufacturing a shared past to feign a vulnerable heart. Simpler times, he called them, before everything became complicated. She asked when that was, and he told her it was the year he learned what his father's ships were really carrying. He spoke of the moment he had to choose a safe, small life or a dangerous expansion of the family enterprise. His eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. "I chose bigger," he confirmed, adding that his father never forgave him for it. When she asked if he regretted it, he admitted that sometimes he did. The doubts, he confessed, only came at 3 in the morning when sleep was a distant country. But the daylight always reminded him why he did it. For freedom, for power, for a legacy. He took her hand then, admitting that sharing it with someone who understood was a new and dangerous variable. A private road delivered them to a villa etched into the hillside, beautiful but without arrogance. It was old stone, surrounded by ancient olive groves and quiet gardens. As the engine died, she asked who owned it. He turned to her, his voice low. "It's mine!" He'd bought it 3 years ago, he explained. Had it restored as a place to escape the city, to remember who he was. He got out and opened her door, delivering the critical blow. I've never brought anyone else here. You're the first. It was a confession engineered to make her feel like the chosen one. Inside, the villa was a study in quiet luxury, flooded with light and hung with original art. A chef's kitchen and a living room with a stone fireplace opened onto a terrace with a view so vast it stole the air from her lungs. Carlo, this is... She started, the words failing her. He led her past the terrace to a vast, empty room, sun-drenched from windows on 3 sides. He told her that after he researched her art, he saw this space becoming her studio. A sanctuary for her to create with no one to answer to. A place of her own. She could not believe he would simply give her such a thing. I want to offer it, he corrected, his words carefully chosen. He framed it as a gift without condition, a place to build her business if she decided to build a life with him. She refused, saying it was too much, that they barely knew each other. He calmly swept her objection aside, countering that they knew more of each other's souls than most couples who had been together for years. A magnificent lie meant to accelerate time itself. He listed his own flaws first: arrogance, intrusion, then diagnosed hers: stubborn, gifted, and broke. He presented these as simple facts, making the only question left whether the fire between them was real. His hands cupped her face, a gesture of both control and tenderness. This was not a lifetime commitment, he clarified, just a workspace to unburden her. She saw it for what it was: security, freedom. Everything, she breathed. He cut her off, insisting it was something she deserved, something she had earned, playing to her pride while tightening his grip. Let me give you this, Adriana, he pleaded, an act of supposed charity that cost him nothing but would give her the world. She could feel the strings attached, the beautiful web he was weaving, yet she knew with a sickening certainty that he was right about what she needed. She said again that she needed to think. He agreed easily, murmuring that neither the villa nor he was going anywhere. A vow of permanence and possession. Then he pressed a key into her palm, giving her access, a physical chain to bind her to this place. They stayed at the villa, and Carlo made a simple lunch. The meal was a stage for more confessions. He spoke of his family's business, painting himself as the man who bore all the final, lonely burdens. The domestic scene created a disarming illusion of normalcy and trust. She, in turn, told him of her history with broken men who always tried to either fix her or save her. The confession left her exposed. In the quiet that followed, she felt for the first time seen. Carlo refilled her wine. I don't want to fix you, he said. He reframed her self-image of being damaged as merely being temporarily without resources. A subtle, powerful distinction. She laughed quietly. Her world was divided into men who rescued and men who fled. He dismissed the studio's worth, a classic tactic, murmuring, "It is nothing to me," while alluding to countless other properties. The villa sat empty for 11 months of the year. The gift cost him nothing and gave her everything, a perfectly imbalanced equation. He then tested her, asking if she suspected a catch. She admitted it was only human nature to do so. He countered that with her, he intended to be anything but typical. He took her hand, a strategy of forced honesty through physical touch. He laid his desires bare. He wanted her in his bed. He hoped for a future, and he would invest in her. But the studio, he insisted, squeezing her hand for emphasis, stood apart from all that. The offer was not tied to her body, her loyalty, or anything but her art. If she lost interest in him, the studio would remain hers, free of debt or guilt, a spoken contract. She searched his eyes for the slightest hint of a lie, for the cold glint of calculation. All she found was sincerity, which was far more terrifying than any deception. "Why?" she asked softly, reminding him she had no money, no power, no connections to offer. He agreed that everyone else came to him wanting something, seeking a piece of his influence. But she hadn't known who he was. That was what had captured him. She had argued with him over something trivial, treating him like any other man. That authenticity, he said, his voice dropping, wasn't just refreshing, it was addictive. She accused him of treating her like a novelty. "No," he corrected firmly. "I'm treating you like you're the only real thing in a world of ghosts." He showed her another building she hadn't noticed, a converted barn with large windows and a stone chimney. It looked like a place where things were made. Inside, it was a wood shop, filled with silent tools and half-finished furniture arranged in perfect order. A fine coat of sawdust muted every surface. This, Carlo said, was where he came to make something real, to escape the world of deals and power plays. She walked through the space, her fingers tracing a tabletop, a set of chairs, a perfectly joined bookshelf, admiring the skill. She asked if he had built them all. He had. It was one of the few lessons from his father he still valued, that it is better to create a thing than to buy it. He touched the smooth wood of a table. In here, he wasn't the powerful Carlo Ferretti. He was just Carlo, a boy his father taught to measure twice and cut once. He knew that mastery demands time, a thing that cannot be rushed. In showing her this raw, creative sanctuary, he offered a piece of his soul. Here was not the Titan, but a man compelled by the same artistic hunger that she knew so well. She saw a reflection of herself, a soul who knew that creation offered a sustenance wealth never could. She breathed her thanks for being allowed this glimpse behind the curtain. He used the moment, saying he needed her to see the drive that exists beyond currency, forging a bond. He argued they were cast from the same mold, both built from nothing by sheer will. The only difference, he claimed, was that he'd made his peace with walking in darkness. She recognized the seduction in his philosophy, yet a smile touched her lips. He asked if it was working. Perhaps. She closed the distance between them, admitting she was captivated by this truer self, the woodworker, the keeper of this secret place. He corrected her softly, his voice low, stating no other woman had ever set foot here. His hands found her waist, pulling her into his world. He voiced a hope she would return often, a gentle invitation with no demands. She noted how quickly he was moving. At 33, he had no patience for games, he said. When he found something precious, he saw no sense in hesitating. Life was too short, meant to be lived with those who make one feel truly alive. She, he confessed, made him feel human again. Something better. He leaned in to kiss her, a command to stop thinking. This touch was deeper, more desperate than before, fed by the raw intimacy of this isolated place. His hands tangled in her hair as hers gripped his shoulders. For a timeless moment, nothing else existed. Parting, he rested his forehead against hers, asking her to stay for dinner for the night, clarifying it was an invitation, not a proposition, unless she wished it to be. Her response was an offer to help, a pretext to extend the moment. A war began inside her. Her mind screamed of the profound risk, but her heart, chasing a feeling of heightened existence, overrode all logic. She found herself saying yes. When she agreed, a calculated look of relief softened his features, designed to lower her guard. He then invented a task that would take hours, openly framing it as a way to keep her there. She felt the walls of the gilded cage close in, and she accepted it. As Carlos cooked, she wandered the villa, finding her way back to the studio with her sketchbook. A creative spark, dormant for months, caught fire. The light, the quiet. It was a perfect storm that broke through the dam of her financial worries and let her art flow freely again. 30 minutes later, Carlo stood in the doorway announcing dinner. She glanced up, the past 2 hours having vanished in a blur of creation. The space was perfect, she breathed. He confirmed it was now hers, declaring the matter settled and her doubts irrelevant. He stepped closer to see her sketches, calling them beautiful. He asked if they were for the hotel. Some were, but others were new seeds, personal ideas she'd lacked the peace of mind to nurture. He assured her that now she had all the time and space she needed. Dinner was an opulent scene on the terrace, lit by candles as the sun bled across the horizon. He repeated his earlier request for a secret she had never told anyone. After a moment's thought, she confessed her deepest fear, that this was all a dream, and she would wake up back in her desperate reality. Carlo promised her he and the villa were real, admitting how fast her world had been turned upside down. She remarked on the impossible shift. 2 days ago, they were enemies over a parking spot. Now she was his guest, weighing an offer that would rewrite her future. He noted that life moves at lightning speed once you let go of the illusion of control. He poured more wine, offering his own truth. He hadn't felt this at ease in years, his mind always locked in strategic warfare. With her, he could just be, a state both terrifying and wonderful. This loss of control was a thrilling new sensation for him. They moved inside by the fire after dinner, the conversation deepening into the night. They traded stories of childhood's dreams, fears, and failures. He spoke of soured deals, of seeing violence, of the crushing weight of an organization that depended solely on him. She asked if he ever wanted to just walk away from his family's empire and start over. He admitted the temptation was a daily devil on his shoulder, but he was indispensable. Too many relied on him. His brothers were capable soldiers, but they lacked a general's vision. Carlo justified his criminal world as a solemn duty to his people. He then looked at Adriana and saw her as he saw this villa, a beautiful, controlled sanctuary for his soul. Initiating his campaign of possession with a soft, calculated touch. In his mind, she became the cure for his complicated existence, a perfect narcissistic fantasy. Her internal conflict was obvious, but he reframed her turmoil as proof she was making the right choice, seizing control of her reality and silencing her intuition. He led her to a guest room, another beautiful, isolated chamber. Carlo paused at the door, a performance of respecting a boundary he had every intention of erasing. It was a subtle probe, testing the waters of her compliance. Her gratitude was his cue to move closer, escalating the intimacy. He told her plainly he wouldn't let her run, a verbal claim of ownership. This relentless advance was a classic tactic designed to systematically dismantle her defenses. His whispered promise of everything was a textbook assault of love bombing. Her dizzying confusion was the intended result of having her world inverted, from a life of struggle to the companion of a king. Her own thoughts revealed she knew the danger, yet felt an inescapable pull, the first threads of a trauma bond weaving themselves around her. His text message was a test, a digital line cast out to gauge her state of mind across the physical distance. I observed the patient's choice to breach the established line. She abandoned her designated safe haven, walking towards his room instead, a clear behavioral marker showing the erosion of her will to self-preservation. He appeared before her partially undressed, a casual display of power and ownership. Her question, whether she was being stupid or brave, hung in the air, revealing her deep inner battle. He validated both, normalizing her fractured state. He pulled her into his bed, a definitive act of physical capture. When she questioned how this could ever work, she correctly named the chasm between their worlds, voicing a completely rational fear. Her self-worth was chained to her place in the world. He systematically broke those chains, praising her spirit over her status and appointing himself the sole judge of her true value. He used a classic isolation tactic, dismissing his own world as shallow and meaningless. The move was designed to make her feel he was her only true protector, the only one who saw her, thus making her utterly dependent on him. He listed her qualities, mirroring her soul to forge an illusion of profound understanding. His talk of a future, after knowing her for mere days, was a strategy to fast-track intimacy past the point of rational thought. He framed her arrival at his door as a shared madness, a mutual leap into the abyss. This narrative shifted the blame, painting them as equal partners in a dangerous dance rather than predator and prey. She confessed she had a poor sense of self-preservation, and he met it with approval, rewarding her for lowering her shields. His invitation to simply sleep was framed as a need for comfort, another step in his patient escalation of intimacy. The word please was a weapon, a calculated performance of vulnerability meant to shatter her last defense. Her silent agreement was the moment of surrender. The steady beat of his heart beside her became a powerful, physical anchor for the bond. He anticipated her fears about his reputation, disarming her with a preemptive strike. Her words, "I am choosing to believe you," showed her consciously stepping off the cliff, a required leap of faith to accept her new reality. The feeling of being safe and chosen in his arms was a classic sign of a captive's devotion. Waking to an empty bed was part of the pattern, a calculated unpredictability that made his presence her only source of stability. A note left on the pillow dictated her morning, extending his control even in his absence. The sheer abundance of food laid out for her was a primal display of his power as her sole provider. He openly connected the act of providing food with the way his family showed love, a powerful conditioning technique he admitted to using to cultivate affection and reliance in his patient. He managed her return to her world, asserting his dominance over her life outside the villa. The art gallery event was framed as her opportunity, but its true purpose was to present her to the world as his. Her protest against being a trophy is deftly parried. He calls her his choice instead. The wordplay sidesteps her unease and cements his authority. He openly admits she will serve to polish his public persona. He presents the merging of their private and professional worlds as a calculated move for her advancement. It is a practical rationale meant to soothe her anxieties by targeting her ambition and logic. Throughout the ride back, his touch is almost unbroken, a physical assertion of their bond. She reads satisfaction in his face, a projection of contentment after a triumphant capture. He insists on walking her to the door, a claim of territory disguised as gentlemanly conduct. The kiss that follows is a deliberate act of dominance, engineered to leave a physical and lasting imprint. He offers a key, a potent symbol of his dominion. It is a token of access that doubles as a leash. Her protests are coolly brushed aside as he flexes his wealth and her inability to resist. He casts her independence as a flaw needing to be corrected. His money is offered not as generosity, but as a tool for her success, framing any rejection as irrational and detrimental to her ambitions. Once within her own space, she suffers a sharp mental conflict. A sudden burst of creativity follows, hinting at an unconscious need to justify his belief in her artistic capabilities. Her sparse collection of clothes highlights their vast power disparity. She selects her one fine dress, once used for her own career ambitions, now repurposed for the new part he has cast for her. The result was acceptable, though not exceptional. Carlo arrived promptly at 1900 hours. The expression that crossed his face upon seeing me instantly erased my previous unease. His judgment was swift. "You look beautiful. Perfect." The gallery, A converted warehouse in a prosperous neighborhood used its soaring ceilings and stark interior to display a collection of valuable contemporary works. Carlo steered me through the crowd, his hand possessively on the small of my back, introducing me to the core of Naples's artistic society. His words were precise. "This is Adriana Romano, a brilliant designer. Her work is a must-see." He never used romantic language, always presenting me professionally, a gesture I appreciated more deeply than he knew. As we studied a prominent abstract piece, a woman's voice cut through the room's low hum. "Carlo Ferretti, I heard you had a guest this evening. I had to see for myself." I turned toward a blonde woman in her early 30s. Her immaculate look screamed of old money and disciplined maintenance. Contempt thinly masked her eyes, while Carlo's voice turned carefully bland. "Bianca, I didn't know you would be here. Paolo asked me to come. He thought I'd appreciate the art." Her gaze swept over me, a rapid evaluation. "So, you're the famous woman, the one who fought him for a parking spot. How quaint." Carlo said, "Adriana, meet Bianca Conti, someone I knew." "His old flame," Bianca corrected. We were together for almost a year until Carlo decided he valued his solitude more than me. The tension in the air was palpable. I tried to step back, but Carlo's hand tightened at my waist. He said evenly, "Bianca and I saw each other for a short time 3 years ago. It was an unworkable match. We wanted different things." "You mean I wanted a future and you wanted an escape hatch?" Bianca shot back, her smile like a blade. "But it appears you've changed your tune. Carlo Ferretti at a public event with a partner. That's headline material. She must be someone remarkable." "She is," Carlo confirmed flatly. "Now, if you'll excuse us." "Just a second, I'm curious." Bianca stepped closer, studying me with a cold detachment like a specimen. "What do you do, Adriana? Let me guess. A model or an actress?" Carlo's usual type. Keeping my voice steady, I replied, "I'm a designer. I focus on graphics and brand identity." "How interesting. And where did you study?" "The Academy of Fine Arts in Naples." "Charming. What about your family? Are they artists as well?" The question was a clear social interrogation meant to determine my pedigree and status. Carlo's face grew stern. He recognized her game. "Bianca, these questions are tedious. Adriana doesn't have to justify herself to you or anyone." Bianca's voice turned sickly sweet. "I'm just making conversation, getting to know the woman who's finally captured Carlo Ferretti's attention. That's quite a feat. The rest of us only managed a few months at best." "Maybe that says more about you than it does about Carlo," I shot back, the words startling me. "If you couldn't keep his interest, maybe you weren't as captivating as you thought." Bianca's gaze sharpened. "Watch yourself, darling. You don't know who you're talking to." Carlo's voice cut in, low and threateningly calm. "Neither do you," he said. "Adriana is with me, therefore a problem with her is a problem with me. I suggest you back away, Bianca, before this gets worse." The threat was unmistakable. A flash of rage crossed Bianca's face before she forced a smile. "Of course, I meant no harm. Enjoy the show." She walked away, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Once she was out of earshot, Carlo murmured, "I'm sorry about that. Bianca handles rejection poorly. I should have warned you she might be here." "It's fine," I said, steadying my breath. "I can handle a jealous ex." Then, with an edge, "But I have to wonder, how many more of your old flames will I be meeting at these events?" "Not many," he replied. I haven't had a serious commitment in years. Bianca was the closest thing to it, and that was more utility than genuine connection. He guided me toward a quieter corner of the room. But I need to be completely honest, he continued. My past is complicated. There were other women, quite a lot of them, in fact, but none of them mattered. None of them were you. That sounds like a rehearsed speech. It isn't, he said, his tone direct. I've had arrangements, mutually beneficial deals with no feelings involved. I've had short flings with women who wanted the prestige of being with me. And I've had only one relationship that was even close to real. That ended 3 years ago, when I understood we were staying together out of routine, not love. He held my hands. But this, what I feel with you, is not the same. It's real, it's powerful, and it's probably moving too fast. But it's true. You have to know that. I whispered. I believe you. But you have to understand how intimidating this is. Your world, these people, the rules, the judgment, it's a lot to take in. I know, he replied. And if it ever gets to be too much, you tell me. We'll find another way. He pulled me closer. But don't let people like Bianca make you doubt yourself. You belong. You're talented and smart, and you've earned your place here. I hesitated. Even if I don't come from money, I asked. Even if my family has no connections? That's exactly why. You earned your place through talent and hard work, not by birthright. That means more. He placed a kiss on my temple. Now, come on. I want you to meet Paolo. He's the collector I mentioned, the one who might be interested in your work. The rest of the night became a blur of new faces. Paolo Santoro was a warm man in his 50s who loved art and had the money to back it up. He looked over my portfolio, which Carlo had magically produced on his device, with genuine fascination. Paolo noted as he swiped through the designs, "This is exceptional work. It's elegant, but also inviting. Exactly the style we need for a hotel rebrand I'm working on. Can you come to my office next week? I'd like to talk about hiring you." I struggled to hide my excitement. Absolutely, I'd be delighted. Paolo grinned. Carlo has a great eye for art, and apparently for people too. You have a remarkable gift, Adriana. I look forward to working together. Hours afterward, leaving the gallery, I felt like I was floating, a potential huge client and praise from a respected figure, all because Carlo brought me and presented me as a serious professional. Back in the car, I said, "Thank you for tonight, for introducing me to Paolo, for making me feel like I belonged." You did belong. I just made sure they saw it. He captured my hand. And now I'm taking you back to my place. We need to talk. That sounds ominous. Not ominous, just honest. There are things you need to know about me, my business, and what it means to be connected to me. He looked over at me. And you have to decide if that's a life you can accept. Carlo lived in Chia, overlooking the bay. His apartment was tasteful, but lived in. Books lay on tables, and the art felt chosen by him, not a decorator. The room felt lived in, not merely arranged for show. After pouring us wine, he indicated the sofa. Sit. I want to be completely honest about myself and my work. I obeyed, my heart hammering. This was it. The full truth about Carlo Ferretti's business dealings, the moral shadows he had mentioned, why his name inspired both respect and dread. Our family's shipping business is legitimate, he began. We move consumer goods, textiles, electronics, machinery on lawful, regulated channels. It generates reliable, taxed income and gives jobs to over 200 people. It is the foundation for our other ventures. And those other ventures, they function where legal lines blur. We broker deals for those needing privacy. We move cargo that might be missing papers but is not explicitly illegal. We provide logistics and protection for clients who avoid standard methods. His eyes held mine. I do not move narcotics. I do not trade in human lives. I am never involved in acts that hurt civilians. But I do operate beyond the strict confines of lawful commerce. Why? If the main company earns well, why risk the illegal side? Because that business is constrained, its expansion is slow. The profit margins are slim, and some people in my circle need work the system will not provide. Ex-convicts who cannot get a job, talented men without papers, families who need cash now, not later. He leaned forward. I'm not trying to justify it. I am explaining my reality. This is my nature. This is my purpose. As for the violence, the stories about your enemies, some of them are true. I have hurt those who threatened my people or my assets. I have made a point of those who betrayed or robbed me. It brings me no pride, but I carry no shame for it. In my circle, perception is power. If they see you as weak, you are consumed. So yes, I have used cruelty when it was demanded. His openness was both stunning and terrifying. Anyone else would have softened their story, trying to seem more decent. Carlo was simply handing me the cold, hard facts. My question was simple. Why reveal so much? He could have let the truth bleed out slowly. His answer was textbook manipulation, a claim that I had a right to know. He said for this to be real, I had to accept the entirety of his nature, not some polished version. He offered his true self, with all its inherent darkness and broken morality. He reached for me, a calculated gesture of intimacy. I will not deceive you, Adriana. I will not be a mask for you. But it is your burden to decide if this truth is one you can bear. A moment of cold calculation followed. The facts were undeniable. Carlo Ferretti was a criminal. He was violent. He lived by his own code, outside any legal framework any sane person would have run. But my reason was corrupted by his deliberate acts of grace, sharing food, opening his home, showing me his art, a raw story about his late father. He acknowledged my skill and offered me progress, giving me a feeling of validation I had never experienced. At last, I spoke my choice. I am not naive. I understand what you have told me, and I know I should leave, but I do not want to. I want to see how this plays out. I want to stay, knowing exactly who you are. Am I broken somehow? He twisted my words. It means you are either brave or foolish, perhaps both. He moved closer still. But this feeling is a high I have not known for years. I was prepared for you to leave. I expected it, that you are staying, choosing this, choosing me. It is incredibly important. I stated, I have conditions. List them. First, no deception. If I ask something directly, I get a direct response, even if the response is, I cannot say for your protection. Agreed. Second, I will not be involved in your illegal business. I want no specifics. I will not be around for any of it. I will accept it as part of you, but I will not participate. Also agreed, I would never put you in that position. Third, if this relationship endangers me or my career, brings legal trouble, or destroys my name, it ends at once, without argument. A nerve in Carlo's jaw tightened, but he consented. If my world ever puts you in danger, I will remove myself from yours. I promise you. All right then. I took a breath. I am committing completely. This is past the point of evaluation. I'm choosing this life and you." The smile that claimed his features was one of utter possessive satisfaction. He pulled me close, kissing me with an intensity that stole my breath. When we broke apart, we were both panting as he rested his forehead against mine. "You will not regret this," he promised. "I will make sure of it." My truthful answer: "Regret is always on the table, but I am moving forward anyway." We spent the night talking of his family, my goals, and the blueprint for our future. Carlo was direct about his needs. He wanted me to live with him at the villa, even if only part-time, to help my focus and keep me close. He wanted our relationship to be public, for me to be known as his woman. He offered to use his influence to help my career if I would allow it. He said, "My goal is not control, but I cannot be moderately involved. If we do this, it has to be a complete merger, not some occasional casual affair. I need all of you in my life." That is extreme. I know, maybe it is, but I am drawn to it. I am tired of men who do not care. Perhaps that intensity is what I have been missing. I stayed with him that night in his bed. Our intimacy moved past kissing. Making love with Carlo was a reflection of him. Ferocious, passionate, and dangerously potent. He was both tender and relentless, learning my desires while pushing my mind and body to new, unexplored edges. Later, tangled in the sheets, my body felt deeply satisfied while my mind sounded alarms at my own intense emotions. Carlo murmured into my hair, "You are thinking too much again. I can practically feel the gears turning." "I am just integrating new data." "It is a lot, I know, but good things can be overwhelming." He held me tighter. "Sleep, Bella. We can solve for the variables tomorrow." The weeks that followed created a new normal. I worked mostly from his villa's studio, the space awakening a creative spark that had long been extinguished. My pitch for the hotel was accepted. As a result, I landed my first significant client in over 1 year. Paolo Santoro hired me for his hotel's redesign, and that job brought in 2 new leads. Carlo and I lived together most evenings. We fell into a domestic rhythm, cooking food, working near each other, and recapping our separate days. He taught me the art of wine and showed me all his favorite places. In return, I explained design theory and made him attend art shows he would normally skip. His family was a different equation. His brothers were intimidating to meet. Luca and Marco Ferretti had Carlo's size, but none of his grace. Their courtesy was guarded. They were clearly reserving their opinion until they saw if I would stick around. His mother presented a greater hurdle. Maria Ferretti's silence screamed that she had envisioned a daughter-in-law from a family with equal standing. I was an unwelcome surprise, a reality she communicated with cold civil gestures. After one particularly strained Sunday lunch, Carlo said, "Just give her some time. She will adapt once she understands this is real. And if she never does, so be it. My choice in a partner does not depend on my mother's blessing. I am 33. I will make my own decisions." Still, I saw the tension it created in him, the struggle to manage his mother's hopes and his own desires. It was just one more sign that being with Carlo meant navigating a labyrinth whose rules were still a mystery to me. One night, around 6 weeks after our first fight at the garage, Carlo came home wearing a grave expression that was new to me. I was in the studio finishing the plans for Paolo's hotel, and I noticed the shift in him instantly. He said, "We have to talk." A cold knot of fear tightened in my gut. "That phrase never signals good news," I said, setting my stylus on the desk. "What has happened?" "Nothing dire, just a matter that requires our mutual agreement." He took the seat across from me. My business associates are pressuring me to make our status official, to declare an engagement. My heart literally stopped. Engaged? Carlo, we've only known each other for 6 weeks. I'm aware, and this isn't a proposal. Not right now, not this way. But in my circle, serious connections are legitimized by formal declarations. Our continued partnership without a public statement is starting to generate questions, fueling speculation on whether this is genuine or merely a temporary arrangement. What are you asking for, then? I am asking if you will wear a ring. It isn't an engagement ring precisely, but a token of our commitment, a promise ring, essentially, a signal to my world that you are taken and my intentions are real. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. I had this made for you. There is no obligation. If this feels too fast, we'll find another way to handle it. He opened the box to show a magnificent ring, both simple and graceful. A lone diamond in a white gold band. It was understated, yet its worth and meaning were perfectly clear. My voice was a whisper. It is stunning. It is your choice. You are free to refuse. I will respect that. But saying yes means we commit to this publicly. No more hiding, no more uncertainty about where we stand. His penetrating gaze held mine. I want you to accept. I want the world to see you are mine. But only if that is what you truly want. 6 weeks ago, I was arguing with a total stranger over a parking spot. Now that man was offering me a mark of his claim, a man who had become essential to my life in ways I never could have predicted. The pace was dizzying, the force of it all was suffocating. The entire scenario was madness. It was also everything I secretly craved. My voice held steady, hiding my racing pulse. Yes, I will wear your ring. I will be yours in public. I choose this. I choose you. The smile that spread across Carlo's face seemed to validate every single risk I was taking. He guided the ring onto my finger. It fit flawlessly because, of course, he had secretly gotten my measurements. He pulled me into his arms. He murmured into my hair, "You will never regret this. I will make certain of it." You always say that, I noted, though I was smiling too. At some stage, you're going to have to show some proof. I will spend the rest of my days proving it if I must. He pulled away to meet my eyes, his own burning with intensity. I know this is fast. I know it sounds crazy, but I have never been more certain of anything. You are it for me, Adriana. The real thing. The woman I want to build a life with. You are deranged, I said, but my mouth was on his, the new ring flashing as I wove my hands into his hair. Completely deranged, he agreed between kisses. But you're still here. You're wearing my claim on you. You're choosing me. So, what does that say about your own sanity? That it's as questionable as yours, maybe more so. Perfect. We'll embrace this madness together. That night, lying in bed with Carlo holding me, the ring catching the moonlight, I retraced the path that brought me here. From a petty argument over parking to accepting a promise ring from one of Naples's most formidable men. From struggling alone to creating a booming enterprise with backing I never thought possible. It was a whirlwind. The subject's subsequent rumination displays a thorough rationalization of her high-risk choices, recasting them as a fortunate turn of events. The perpetrator, Carlo, then reinforces the initial defiant behavior, training her to equate her personal value with the very conduct that first captured his predatory interest. He initiated physical touch while giving praise, stating the brief, 5-minute altercation had irrevocably changed his life. Her effort to dismiss the incident was instantly overruled. He recontextualized her commonplace act as a significant display of agency, imposing a deeper meaning onto their initial interaction. He intensified the physical pressure, tying the gesture to his professed catalyst for emotional bonding, her resolute defiance. The subject then made an unprompted confession of love, a textbook indicator of trauma bonding. The perpetrator's physiological reaction was to freeze, absorbing the success of his manipulation. He then established physical control, maneuvering her into a submissive posture, while his stare triggered a physiological stress reaction. He ordered her to repeat the confession. He echoed the sentiment, characterizing his own feelings with words that affirmed his abnormal psychology, again connecting his fixation to her primary act of rebellion. The subject's own timeline, 6 weeks prior, juxtaposes a trivial squabble with her current precarious situation. She misconstrues his manipulation of her insecurities as validation and his efforts to prevent her departure as a sign of commitment. The original confrontation is now entirely idealized as a faded, defining moment.